And welcome back to Pubcast. We're here at the Redwood, and thanks very much for them hosting us yet again. We've got our friends and families here joining us, and we've got some fabulous guests. We're so blessed to be joined by footballing royalty today. Obviously, we've got Tony Cascarino, absolute legend, but Harry Bassett, over 1,000 games, the league managers Hall of Fame, over 1,000 games, I think 11 clubs, absolutely incredible. Looking forward to a few of his stories. We've got John Pratt, an absolute Spurs legend, 331 games, and then off to Portland Timbers. Look forward
415 actually.
Back in the day, played with some players, just looking forward to reminiscing with them, getting some stories. I think we'll just jump straight in there with John. John, 65, throw you back in there. Bill Nicholson, you're signing for Spurs. What was that like?
Well, obviously, big day of your life, but it was sort of frivolously put towards me because I was playing against Charlton in the Metropolitan League side, and I was working in the city at the time. I did actually go work for 2 months.
Doing what?
Import and export business.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there was someone in Africa waiting to see whether they were going to get credit for 30, 60 or 90 days. And I was asking the young lady behind the bar, behind the bar at Barclays Bank, do you think that's a good risk or not? She goes, no, I got to come back, and there I was. Had to phone someone in Kenya or somewhere like that saying, terribly sorry, we don't think you're a good...
Oh, wow.
So, and that particular day, Ron Greenwood wanted to sign me for West Ham, so all the trauma, all the Tottenham supporters went through, West Ham could have gone through it all, like, you know what I mean? So Eddie Bailey threw his clipboard on the floor and he said, we've only got to sign you professional, Pratty. And I went, oh, thanks, that's nice, yeah, lovely, yeah. That was 1965. November the 19th, it's like sort of your birthday and getting married, and you never forget it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, contract, that 1965. Well,
from 1965 to 1980, I was only ever on a 1-year contract. The only time I was ever offered a 2-year contract was the year I left.
Wow.
So.
And what we're talking money-wise, that first contract and...
First contract was 12 and a half quid.
Wow.
And I went...
A year?
The strange thing about it was I went to Dave Mackay's tie shop to get some ties. And Jimmy Burton, who was his partner, had been a Tottenham player in the 50s. And he said, I've got Dave Mackay's contract here. So he showed it to me, and it was £20 a week.
Wow.
And I said, well, if Dave Mackay ain't worth more than 7.5 quid more than me, I'm a Dutchman's uncle. But it was £20 a week. And to be fair, that's when Jimmy Hill, came in and done all the stuff.
What about highlights, John? Because you made European finals with Spurs.
Yep. Well, highlights were obviously when you sign, when you make your debut. And
How old your debut was?
Debut I was 1920, against the Arsenal, and I only lived just down the road. We lost 1-0. That mug Jennings died over one from John Samuels from about 30 yards. Couldn't have stopped it because John Samuels had a really good strike on him. And following year, your first league goal, well, Cash, you got loads. You always remember that, and that was against the Arsenal. And my mates tell me I nearly got them killed because I scored in the far end from the clock end. And my mates were in the clock end and they've all jumped up. They've all got their Arsenal scarves on, and they spent the next half hour explaining that we lived in the same block of flats as each other in Oxton. Oh. So they said, you nearly got me killed. And then, 71, League Cup. Didn't play, but I played a number of games up to it and got a medal. 72, UEFA Cup final.
Yeah.
73, League Cup final. 74, UEFA Cup final.
So 72 you win, 73 you win the League Cup, and then 73 you go back but lose. Was that to Feyenoord? Who did you lose to in 70?
Yeah, that's when they tore the place to pieces, unfortunately. If you look at the Feyenoord and Ajax situation, is a bit like Arsenal and Tottenham. We like to think that we do things the right way, and sometimes the Arsenal supporters didn't do things the right way in terms of aggression. And that was the same with Feyenoord and Ajax. Yeah. I mean, it didn't help that the Italian referee and his son, who were running the line, disallowed a goal 10 minutes little Chris McGrath, who went to Man United. He scored a perfectly good goal. And they disallowed it, and then they scored with 5 minutes to go, and that's when it all kicked off. And the only time I've ever seen Bill Nick come in, they came in and said, could you go and have a word with a crowd? So Bill came in, and when he came back into the dressing room, he took off his coat, threw it on the floor and said, they're tearing the place to pieces. Now, I had my mum and dad and my in-laws there, but a lot of the boys had their kids there who had young children. So it was quite a traumatic sort of 15, 20 minutes walking out, and you could see seats coming down. Yeah. But we did our bit for Britain in Europe. We got banned for 5 years, everybody.
It was an incredible period, though, where you dominated Europe. I mean, what was that about? And it must have been such, because I think Forest, Wolves, Liverpool, Man United. I think it's hard to remember how much we dominated Europe.
Yeah. The strange thing about it, though, John, is that, the cups and all that are nice, but I always think of myself as a team player, and winning the league over 42 games would have been my... Am I going to give those medals back? No, they're lovely to have, and I enjoyed playing with the boys. But how, with all the great players, and they were great players, that term is used very loosely now. Everyone's a great player, but we had Pat Jennings, Cyril Knowles, probably the best left back we've ever had, Mike England, the best centre half. We had Chiv, we had Gilly, Alan Murray, Martin Peters, it's Stevie P.
The boys were definitely built from different stuff to they are now. I just want to quickly ask you just about the North London derby, obviously. How has that changed? Has that changed in any way? Is it still the same, or is it...
Because, to be fair, the players don't come from down the road.
Yeah, because most of the lads were local. You
were
local,
there was a lot.
Steve Perryman, Graham
and the other
Roberts,
boys, even those we brought in, Pat was there when he was 17. Yeah. Cyril was a little bit older. Joe was an amateur. Joe Kinnear was an amateur before signing pro, the same as me. So there was that sort of closeness, and everyone had that feeling. Where now the players are so, split away from spectators. And to be fair, they can't walk down the street, I don't suppose, where we used to get on the bus.
Well, you can't get your Lamborghini on the bus.
No, but good luck to them. I wish it had been us. It wasn't. But my frustration was we could beat any team in the world, but we didn't win the league.
Yeah. And I've got to ask you this. What are you making of Kane? He's came back, got a goal against Newcastle Sunday. Has he finally got his head right? What's going on?
You're both forwards. You're a supplier, you're a goal scorer. And you're only as good as the creativity behind you. And non-Dembele, I fall out of my seat sitting at home. He's going to knock himself out getting in the car one day.
One of his best games.
What I enjoyed with Kane Sunday, he played as a striker again.
Yeah.
And he was even running that way. He looked as though he was back to, instead of
Son
getting...
as well. Son does a hell of a lot for Kane. And
but that front three, Son, Mora and Kane.
Yeah.
But
so
I thought Ndombele was phenomenal in that little hole, behind him creating.
I mean, what Musa does is he commits people.
Yeah.
And defenders don't like people running at them, particularly if you've got a trick or two, which you had a trick or something. You just used to run through them, didn't you?
It's killed me there.
But Dave was a supplier when he was a midfield player at Wimbledon.
Hardly.
I mean, we're gonna take this opportunity to bring Harry Bassett in. I mean, one of the most colourful, interesting managers, characters we've had in football. And everyone will know this. When I just got to say, are you the Crazy Gang? Where did the Crazy Gang come from?
Well, it started, I was a bit crazy. When I was reserve team manager, I was with Wimbledon with the young players. We had a lot of fun, and there was a lot of mickey taking. There was a lot of things going on. I encouraged things to be good and laughing and enjoyable. We were at Wimbledon, and it wasn't the most salubrious. And the thing was the team spirit. But I'd come through.
You were
playing.
An amateur.
Yeah.
And you even played for England amateur.
Chelsea. Dave, didn't you?
Yeah, I got bombed at Chelsea. Yeah,
it's a great phrase.
I always, Well, I said to Tommy Docherty later on, "You bombed me." He said, "I was," and you never saw me play. He said, "But what a great judge I am, isn't I?"
Well, on that, Dave, because all these teams, you're crazy gang, and I played with a few of the players. Vinny, I played against Fash, and obviously with Wisey. You had some very tough men in your sides, and notably, and we talked off there, Billy Whitehurst, one of the hard men. You know, you've had a number of hard men that you've had to deal with as well.
Well, I like tough players. I like players to be strong and stand up for themselves, and physical players. And again, the Wimbledon team, they could all handle. I mean, you've missed out. Nigel Winterburn was a complete assassin. But he went around, he never spoke to anybody, he never saw anything. And, you know, I mean, he was, the fact that Piercy was in front of him, Nigel was brilliant. He came on a free transfer, player of the year for 4 years. And George Graham knew about him. As soon as he went to Arsenal, we were straight into Wimbledon and buy him and everything else. We had a boy, Stevie Galliers, who could start a fight in no problems at all. He was grease lightning in midfield. Like, if you, on knockdowns and things like that, he was there. Wisey was brilliant as well. You know, Wisey was very, very clever. He learned very fast that where the ball was going. Yeah. And he was on the move and everything else in terms of that. But they encouraged one another. But they were the side. I mean, Vinny come in and, you know, he's run around and, you know, basically he got some right diabolical insults at half time, you know. Vinny, shut up, you're a dickhead, basically, you know. Just give the ball to somebody who can play. And he bought into it. He realised his limitations.
Who was the worst out of all of them to handle hard man? Because I mentioned Billy Whitehurst, and you had him at Sheffield United, and he's a bit of the on the underground, wasn't he? Not a lot of people have heard of that name, but up north in Yorkshire, he's a legend. Oh,
legend. Billy's a complete nutcase. You know, his idea of, you know, he said to me, he was going out with a goalkeeper, mate, Esford. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going for a ploughman's. He didn't tell me he was going to have 14 pints as well. But what Billy would come in and he was a fantastic trainer. And I mean, in training, if he was going and we was doing a practice and the wingers started fiddling about, if John had too many touches, he'd walk over and say, now, when I make the run, you make sure it gets in there. Yeah. Now, if you fiddle about, I'm going to come and knock you out. And it happened. Paul Wood, who was playing for us, Woody one day's done, and all of a sudden he said to Woody, Woody did it. Next thing, Bill's off. Woody's roaring off out the training ground, you know. I mean, it was no messing. He was a character, Bill. I mean, you know, I think even in his book, Hanson said Billy Whitehurst was the toughest centre forward he played against. He wasn't frightened of anybody or anything at all. I mean, he ended up fighting. I forget. He was running his pub, and one of
That's near Bramall Lane, wasn't it?
Right there. He had one of the boxers in. I forget who it was in there, and he wouldn't get off to karaoke. And Bill said, "Oi, get off! Other people want to go." And he said, "Who's going to remove me?" And Bill said, "I will." He said, "Okay." So Bill's gone whack, and it was all off. I mean, Bill took a few. He come out with a few cuts and bruises himself, but there was no messing about with Bill, you know.
Well, I mean, the question I'm thinking straight in my head. I mean, you had some fierce players. Were you ever worried yourself trying to take someone off or confront someone in the dressing room? I mean... No,
I wasn't worried about them. I mean, in fairness, I managed it quite different. It was very difficult because I was one of the boys as well. I'd grown up with them and, you know, I played midfield for Walton and etc. I wasn't exactly a supplier, I was a destroyer, you know, and I was for the team and everything else, and the team was always based. So the boys knew. They used to come in and ask the physio what sort of head I've got and what's Harry, and the physio go, I wouldn't mess about today, he's not in a very good mood, unless you want to find yourself doing a 6-mile run after. He said, I suggest you get on with the training. But then there were other times where I've come for a run and I didn't know one day I've come through the woods at Wimbledon and everything else, all of a sudden Vinny, who was it, a lot of the players come flying out, jumped on me, and there's a great big puddle and stream, and they got me in the there and on the water and punching me and everything, you know, so...
So how do you, from your management, how did that change till you get to your 1000th game as a manager? Like, did you evolve and have to change the way? Because the game was changing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had a great spirit. I mean, the thing that we built up was that as we come up through the league, we weren't frightened of anybody or anything, you know. We learned very, very fast. And a lot of those...
It was incredible, wasn't it? 81...
Yeah.
To like 88, 87.
Well,
you literally came
86, 87. We finished 6th in the league and would have been in Europe and got the quarterfinals of the FA Cup and lost to Tottenham and that.
That meteoric rise will arguably never happen again. The way you brought Wimbledon from the 4th division into the top flight and mixed it in the top flight?
Very unlikely, because
Did
now
Watford get close to it?
Watford did, and but they took a bit longer. I mean, when you think Wimbledon's gates were 2,300, 3,000, etc., Watford's was 16s and 17s, and the money we were paying. I mean, in that first season when we finished sixth and we were there, my wage bill was 300,000. That was for all the players, myself, the assistant manager, the physio, and everything else. And the great thing.
290 for you then?
No, I'll tell you, I did it for 285. So I went into Sam, I said, how about giving me half of that? He said, no, it's not in your contract.
Is that arguably the most special time was Wimbledon with your Fashes, Dennis Wise, Sanchez? Alan Court was very special to you, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean, unbelievably, we had 7 or 8 players that played in the 4th division, 3rd division, 2nd division, and the top league. And that year we came 6th, and we had 23 players. 13 had come through the youth team. They talk about the Manchester United youth team. That youth team, Bassett had cost 1,000, Gage Youth, Gale Youth, Thorney Youth, Nigel Winterburn a free transfer, Wisey Youth, Hodges Youth, Fishington Youth, you know, and Corky had come through. I mean, I think we had to pay £1,000 for that. That was well overrated.
FA Cup final.
Well, that
No,
I
you
was
after
after.
the year
Oh,
before.
you've gone with
Yeah, yeah.
So-
okay. Well, that's still your team.
So I think Wimbledon, I think you head to Watford, and you were saying earlier, you literally went to Watford as they were trying to sell half the team. I think Barnsley had gone, John Barnes had gone, Kevin Richardson goes to Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice. I'd fallen out. I didn't really want to lose Wimbledon, but as Sam and man, our relationship...
Did he try and interfere with the contract?
Well, no, he didn't interfere, but he wouldn't pay me what I wanted, you know, and it wasn't massive, to be quite honest. And he felt also he wasn't getting credit from the fans that he did because he was the owner of the club. And so we ended up, you know, and all of a sudden I thought, well, I don't want to go, but I've got to go. And the worst thing that happened, Graham Taylor went to Watford, and all of a sudden Watford were there, and I went to the cup final, which was Everton-Liverpool that year. I come home and, you know, I drove in the drive, and my wife opened the door and she looked a bit panicky. And I thought, what's wrong with her? She knows I've got a key. And she said, well, there's somebody here to see you. So I've gone, oh. Then all of a sudden, Elton John come prancing out the lounge, didn't he? And I'm thinking, Elton John? You know, when all of a sudden you're dazed. I mean, I have a joke, it wasn't true, but I did say to the missus, did you tell him we ain't got a piano? But he was there to tell me that Graham was going to leave Watford after 10 years, and he was more or less there. I mean, I'm starstruck. I mean, you know, you don't know what to do. Your head's spinning and everything else, and you know, he's a great fella, but he's so lively and everything. I mean, to be fair, I think some of the cocaine and vodka was working as well. And he wanted a decision the next day, and it was ridiculous. And we realised that it was wrong. I should have thought about it, and I should have thought, why has Graham Taylor got there? I realised that half of the team wanted to leave. Right. You know, so all of a sudden we lost Falco, who went to Glasgow Rangers. Richardson went to Arsenal. Barnsley went. So it was a difficult time, you know. But I've got to say, the amazing part was, I was at Wimbledon 13 years, and I earned 145,000 in those 13 years. Watford, with my salary and the payoff, and what Elton looked after me on the side, was more than I'd earned in Wimbledon in the previous 14 years. So it turned out financially okay. But the Watford fans hated me, and so...
It wasn't your fault.
Well, I suppose we was down the bottom, to be fair. So, no, I wasn't quite the type of manager they thought, this hooligan from Wimbledon. They were sophisticated now, Watford, and, you know... From Bushy. So, yeah.
Well, Vinny's from Bushy, wasn't he?
Yeah, Bedman.
But then you head to Sheffield United, and that is really quite a nice story. I think you win... Do you win the Division 1 title in 91, 92?
Well, I mean, I went there. I mean, Watford...
That's the start of the Premier League. Yeah. So I think you keep them up in Division 1, and then the Premier League starts the year after.
That's right, yeah.
Does Brian Dean score the first Premier League goal?
League goal, that's right, Brian League, yeah, against Manchester United, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Teddy Sheringham gets the later goal for Nottingham Forest.
Did he score a hat-trick in that first?
Sorry, I don't want to bring Teddy Sheringham.
Yeah, cheers. It's all right, everyone always got one better than me, so that's another one he's done.
Another one he got up on you. No, so, I mean, that was a special time. Sheffield
was a great club.
I think Sheffield United for me and Wimbledon were was special for you?
Well, yeah, they were big. You know, I was at Sheffield United nearly 8 years. You know, as I say, I went there and they were bottom of the league, and the chairman did say we're a pretty crap side. He didn't lie to me about that. Anyway, that was for sure. And we got relegated, and Watford got relegated. So, of course, everybody's on it. Bassett's got 2 teams relegated in the same season. Yeah. But then I managed to build a side, and we won the third. We came second to Wolves in the 3rd division, and then we come second to Oxford the following season, and we're in the top league.
Right.
And we were setting the world alight. After 17 games in the Premier League, we had 4 points. So I had a team meeting and said to the lads, let's forget Europe, can we try and stay in the league? Which they did, because at the end of the season we finished 13th. We had a great run.
Yes.
We won 7 games out of 8 and finished 13th.
Harry, does it sometimes, with the modern game, do you think, because we're always obsessed with keeping the ball, possession, you know, and a certain style of play? Well, obviously I played for Jack Charlton's Republic of Ireland. We were quite a direct team, but very effective. And there are many ways to skin a cat and win football matches. So, you know, do you sometimes laugh at yourself when you see teams overplay, goalkeepers getting on the ball and playing dangerous balls in the modern game?
Well, you know, I mean, over the years, if you sit down and you work it out, if you lose the ball in your defending third, every 8 times it ends up in the back of your net. If you lose it in the final third up the other end, it goes down to about 48%. So I'm thinking, Harry, it's better up that end than down this end. And particularly with players who really, you haven't got your best players at the back. You know, you've got all your creative and your technical players in midfield. Well, if they're treading on the ball and falling over and passing it, I mean, it just amazes me how teams can see goals there. I mean, it's not common sense. I'm told this is the new DNA. Well, obviously, you know, my DNA is totally different. I mean, you know, people forget the team I built at Forest and Barnsley didn't play like Wimbledon. We played because we had totally different players. To play long ball, it's hard work. You've got to do the mileage because you're going up, you're stretching the game. And Brentford are doing similar. They're going for it. Wimbledon, when we come up, I said, look, lads, well, you know, there's all these great players, Souness, Dalglish, and, you know, all the time. I said, we're going to go for it. We're going to lose some, but we're going to frighten them. And that's what happened. And Brentford are doing exactly the same. They're having no nonsense. They're making sure they play direct when they have to. They are going to stay up comfortably because he's got it right. They're not going to mess about and give you any goals that you don't deserve. And also, they're terrific at set plays. The set plays, Wimbledon, we could score, we reckon we'd score a goal from every 12 corners we had. Sometimes we've had 24 corners and not scored, but then we scored 2 out of the next 2. And it was all worked out what we did, and the free kicks and corners and everything else. And that, I mean, I look now and I don't see any imagination. You know, a lot of these in-swinging free kicks are going over there. They're killing the ice cream man and the pie man, aren't they?
Alan Murray used to say, sometimes you've got to win ugly.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, but unfortunately, I say fortunately or unfortunately, if you play for a team like Tottenham with a tradition from the 50s right the way through to now, is you have to win a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, for the want of a better word, you can't F and bite, that cliche, and get away with it.
But you've got to, you know, adapt to your players. But Tottenham would go for the type of players. You know, with Glenn Hoddle, you know, you've got to get best out of Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that's right. Yeah, but that's right. But again, it's like every team. For the stars to shine, the other players do the work, and they're quite happy to do that. You know.
Because you worked for long periods with a coach that I worked with, one of the best coaches I worked with, Wally Downs.
Yeah.
And what Wally did was he gave you your positions. You understood your role in a team. And I don't see that now. So today, would you stick to a 4-4-2? I mean, you would have played with a big man, little man.
Not necessarily. No, if you know, you might find that the midfield's congested. You might have to perhaps have the extra midfield player in there. But I'd still be getting the forward and turning the team, turn the side team,
the ball
defender,
up the pitch
just
quicker.
Quicker and turn and get people running into the space. I mean, Corky was useless to feet. I mean, to be fair, he was useless on the ball anyway. But he could head the ball. I mean, Corky came in one day, he's dropped Glyn Hodges and Wally right in the cart because they were playing wide, and I'm fuming because we've been fiddling about. Oh, well, now they think they've bleeding arrived, don't they? They think they're superstars. Anyway, Corky's boots are on the floor. I've gone, what are you doing? He said, take them off. He said, take me off. It's a waste of time. the wingers are not putting the ball. If they don't put the ball in the air and give me a chance, it's a waste of time. You might as well get somebody else on. I said, exactly, Corky. He's put it right. So I've given Hodges. They've gone out. They've called him a few names. Next, the second half, Hodges and Wally are smashing the ball and get onto that, you bald-headed idiot. Yeah. And, you know, again, you need that to realise. Corky knew you had to get the ball. You talk about Harry Kane. I keep seeing Harry Kane running around in his own half here, and I'm thinking, don't run about. Stand still. Wait. Get up there. But, you know, he must go mad at sometimes seeing the ball go here, there and everywhere. You know, he wants the ball in the box. You know, when all of a sudden he's done a great run the other day, he's just stayed on side, a great ball, it's all over, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, we had Roy Keane. You know, Robbie Keane played for us. And where don't you want Robbie Keane? In your penalty area. Yeah. He kept coming back and back and back. And the thing is, you can't be in 3 places at once. You can't receive the ball, pass it to yourself, get it wide to yourself, cross it to yourself, and put it in the back of the net yourself. Absolutely. You've got to give someone else credit for seeing what you see. You know, and principles of play, which we had at Tottenham, no matter where you were in the back, you know, if you're back 4, if Knowlesy had it, or if say I was playing now, if I was playing left back, my first look was for the winger, my second look was for the midfield player, my third look was for the first centre forward showing. Yeah. And if he was too tight, he'd spin and you'd hit the second man who had made the run into the hole. Yeah. That was your last resort.
Yeah, because that's your setup, that's your pattern of play. You'd set up, goes out to the full-back, left-back, Kenny Sampson, opens himself up, you've got that one, you've got that one, you've got the channel, or you've got the diagonal. You've got a choice, or you give it to Mickey Hazard or someone in midfield who's going to turn and then play that pass, second phase.
Whether you was a centre-half or not, you had to run at the opposing centre-forward and drag him into an area so you could pass the ball through him.
Because you were arguably one of the few players I know who could play every position. Is that... You were comfortable playing literally centre forward, centre back, left back.
I know they say a jack of all trade, master of none.
Do you regret that?
No, I wouldn't have played half the games I played. I mean, we had an instance where Cyril Knowles, pulled a muscle in a practice game, and I was actually playing in midfield, and Alan Mallory said, well, what are we going to do about the left back position? And Bill Nicholson went, well, it ain't a problem. John Pratt will go and play left back. And I looked at the left back in the reserves, and you could have scraped his head off the floor, like, because he's thinking, hold on, there's a midfield player going to go and play left back. I must be a really good player, me, because I ain't going to get a look in here. Yeah. I had an occasion where I played centre forward, because JG, bless him, whose funeral we're going to on Friday, he was injured. Jimmy. And, you know, Tash, you might have found this if you ever played centre half, because it's a different setup. So where, you know, I'm getting hammered, I'm absolutely getting mullered everywhere. Yeah. Now in midfield, I know how to deal with that. And if I'm getting a little bit of stick, I can dish a bit of stick out. Yeah. But I didn't have a clue. So I took my life into my own hands and I knocked on the door. Bill, don't think I'm made for that centre forward, like, you know, I don't mind dishing it out, but I ain't got a clue. He went, he said, it's all right. He said, Jimmy's fit on Saturday. I went, so I've talked myself out of a game here. And as I was just going to bow the ball, he said, but I'm moving you back in the midfield. I went, thank Christ for that. Like, you know, someone else must have been injured.
Oh, wonderful. I was going to ask you, John, on this, because obviously we're a younger generation, but knowing your job and what a manager explains to you, what suits you best, is when I played my best football. Yeah. You know, I just knew my job. The moment it got complicated, and I'm not saying, you know, football does evolve and change, but the moment I was asked to do things that I weren't as comfortable doing, my performances dropped, quite alarmingly.
Well, as a striker, you set the rest of the team up to set them up, didn't you? Yeah.
I think the two best coaches I had were Steve Harrison and Wally Downs. And what they did, they just give you very simple instructions of basic guidelines of where you should be. If it's out for throwing, if it's a corner, if you're a goal kick, you just set yourself up. And whenever you get in certain positions, Alan Kirbishley was very much like that. Pardew was very much like that. As managers, we did lots of pattern of play of just giving you basic parameters, and then the rest was off the cuff. Now, I mean, I was a striker when I was a kid, and Stevie Cockwell came to me and said, I've got righty and righty. Do you want to play out wide? And I was like, I'll play anyway. Give me a shirt. and I ended up going playing wide, and I never really recovered. Played a couple of times with Righty when Brighty was injured, and I said, Righty, we don't need a big man, we just need two little quick men. Brighty's rubbish, but no, I mean, they were great partnerships. Those were the days where I'd love to have played up front, and I wish, the one regret I had is I wish I'd have been a little bit more greedy. So I let the strikers bully me a little bit in cross for them, make goals for them. And I even told that story where Stevie Coppell came and put a clause in my contract, the next one, I got assist bonus. So it wasn't a goal and assist bonus, because just to encourage me to cross more, because they were sulking, because they literally would come in after a game and be screaming and shouting and effing and blinding about, I create goals, I cross goals, they score the goals. So, you know, but you get that. Strikers are greedy, which is fair enough. Yeah. But goals make prizes, and I think over the years, I think that's one thing I look now and I think I'd have been a bit more greedy. The pitches are great.
And more bonuses.
Yeah, more bonuses. Goals make prizes. But Harry, just want to quickly go back. You had sort of, you ended up as Harry Redknapp's assistant at Southampton.
That's right, yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was interesting, you know. When I could get Harry off the phone from his horse racing and the horses he was buying and this, that and the other. Yeah, it was there, and Kevin Bond was there. It was a difficult time at Southampton because Harry had, linked as well. And it was a bit difficult. Rupert Lowe was there and Clive Woodward appeared out the moon deciding that he knew a lot about football and knew absolutely nothing. But, you know, that was the problem, that he was...
Sir Clive Woodward.
Sir Clive Woodward, unfortunately, he won the World Cup of rugby, nobody's taken, but there was a man who was decided that he knew football and really was an authority on it, and he wasn't, you know, and Rupert Lowe, you know, supported him, and he was just a complete pain round the place, you and me. And I remember, he wanted to take a player out, Nigel Quasi, to show him how to kick the ball. I thought, best of luck with that one. And,
Johnny Wilkinson style.
Most of the problems we got in football is the fact that the people that run football ain't got no idea what football's about. Great financially, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's another great question I'm just thinking of. So you've worked for 11, 12 chairmen. Yeah. And they're interesting characters. Sam Hammam was a hell of a character. I mean, the chairmen are different now.
Oh, yeah.
But back in the day...
Melton, talked earlier.
Yeah. Did you work for Ron Notes? Because you were at Palace for a little while. Yeah, you were at Palace for 2-3 weeks and then left and decided...
when we won, we got promoted to the second division, Ron came in, my contract was up. Right. And he convinced me to go to Palace, and I agreed. I didn't really... No. Well, I go back a long time because I got Ron Nodes from Southall. I knew Ron. I rented, when I was in insurance, I rented a business from him, and he was chairman of Southall Football Club, and Wimbledon was struggling in the non-league, and I said to Ron, come and take over Wimbledon. Which he did, and he did. And so Ron got us into the league as well. We won the Southern League 3 years on the trot, and Ron there. And Ron offered me the job before he gave it to Dario. And I said, no, I'm not ready for it. I'm not there. But the best thing that happened was working 3 years with Dario, because I learned a hell of a lot about coaching, everything else. And then I got it in 81 when Ron went to Palace. Right. So Ron always had this yearning that he wanted me to work for him. So he came, and then I all of a sudden I come home and I was, I felt this Wimbledon team was good, was just going. Yeah. And on the Sunday, I thought, no, I can't go. So I rang Ron up and said, look, Ron, I'm not coming. The door was still open at Wimbledon, and to be fair, he took it well. Yeah. I said, look, I just don't want to, and I'm glad I did, because 3 years later I'd got Wimbledon to where they were. Yeah. And then as time went on, and to be fair, he got me the job at Southampton, at Sheffield United. Oh, okay. Whereas at Christmas, I knew we were struggling. He rang me up, he said, look, I've had the Sheffield United chairman on the board. He said, I've recommended you for the job because you're going to get the sack any day now. He said, so I suggest you take it. Here's his number, ring him. So I did.
I mean, what characters? Because I think Ron Nodes owned Wimbledon, and then he bought Palace for £1 with £1 million debt. Yeah, that's right. And then Sam came in Wimbledon, and both teams flew from there. Yeah.
And sold it to my next door neighbour,
Mark Goldberg.
Mark Goldberg, for 23 million. Was it about around 23 million?
Yeah. No, he sold just the team, didn't he?
Well, we didn't. No,
he just sold the players.
He just sold the players.
He didn't have the He didn't own Selhurst Park.
I think Goldberg paid him 14 million just for the players.
Without the stadium.
without the stadium. And then the other talk sport lad they have on, Simon, he had to pay 14 million for the ground. So Ron did quite well out of that.
Chelsea don't own the pitch, do they? It's the supporters that own the pitch.
Really? Is
Yeah,
that Matthew
and I
Hardy?
think-
Is that legacy of Matthew
Yeah,
Hardy?
and I think, no, it was Ken Bates, I think.
Bates.
I think he was on his way out and he thought, I'll mess them up. I'll sell it off shares to... Because one of my mates, who was actually Peter Osgood's cousin, comes from Manor Park, so he should be a West Ham supporter, but he ain't, he's a Chelsea one, because Peter was his cousin. And he's got part shares in that. And he said, well, they can't do anything unless they really give us a nice, massive payoff.
Wow, incredible times.
Yeah, that's right.
So you end up doing a couple of consulting roles. I think you go back to Sheffield United, Leicester at the end, and then sort of around 2005, is that you finished?
Yeah, well,
Is that
as
your
I say,
choice?
I was at Sheffield United for 8 years, and I was interviewed for the Irish job after Mick had retired, and there was Joe Kinnear and Mick McCarthy. Yeah. And I had the second interview. I've got to say, as I walked out the door, who was the secretary at that time?
Des Kelly, was he?
No, not somebody. And he gave me the thumbs up, and I thought, oh, I've got a chance here. But then they went for Mick, you know, which I half thought with Joe and Mick being the Republic, I thought, do they want another English bloke?
Joe Delaney.
Delaney, that was it,
Joe
yeah.
Delaney.
And then Ron was trying to get me to go to Palace at that time, and I said, well, if I can get a chance to doing the Irish job, I said, I wouldn't mind that, you with me? But then, so I went to Palace for 15 months, and, you know, the problem with Ron was, he paid me half what I was earning at Sheffield United, but he couldn't overcome the fact that he knew the school I went to, and he thought I was council house, and I didn't need the money. He wouldn't pay me, so Man City came in for me and offered, but I went up there and I just realised it was going to be a nightmare with Franny Lee, because he was going to be on the phone all the time, and I was going to be wasting my time trying to deal with him, because he really wanted to pick the team, the tactics and everything else. He was enthusiastic, so I turned it down. And I said to Ron, Doug Miller said, well, give Harry a new contract. And Ron had the ump, I think. He said, no. He said, so I said to Ron, I ain't moving my family down here unless you... we got to the playoff finals, hadn't we? And we lost with the last kick of the game, Claridge. And we were second or third in the league that year, going up for it. And then Forest came in, and I thought, well, this is near Rome, 40 miles from Sheffield. I went to Ron, I said, look, you know... He said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to be with my family and everything else. And he said, what he did is I worked for Palace for nothing. Forest paid Ron compensation what I'd earned in the previous 15 months. So that was it. So I went to Forest.
Because you're only 77. I mean, now Claudio Ranieri, what's he, 72? Roy Hodgson, 74? Is he?
Roy's...
You still don't fancy it? I mean, you look as fit as a fiddle.
No, I mean, you know, you go... No, I got dinosaured off early, you know, but that's no problems at all, because, you know, I don't play the game that people want to they see, their perception as everything else. So, you know, I ended up at the end, I worked with Wisey at Millwall for 6 months, and then, you know, I went with Harry for 6 months there, and then I had 6 months with Wisey at Leeds as well. And all of a sudden I thought, well, you know, it's time to go and see the world. I probably packed up a couple of years earlier. I had a chance to go to Brentford at that time and a couple of other clubs, and I probably should have done it, but you've got to be, I'm full on, you know, as a manager, you know, you deal with it. I mean, they don't go and watch players play, they watch them on videos. I want to see somebody what's happening when the ball's not near him, you know, is he picking his nose and wandering around at all, and you've got to do it, you're 24 hours, you can't play on it sort of thing, so...
It's a valid point, isn't it? I mean, you know, like going to watch a player live, and yes, you can look at the analysts of, you know, on a video and see what he does, but you want to go and see things that you won't see via a video.
Sometimes, Tom, it's players you don't have to. We had a situation when Peter Shrews and myself, when the management team, we played Man United away, and Irving Scholar was the chairman at the time. He said, bring another bag, because we're going to Turin to watch Juventus versus Turin. So we thought, oh, he's probably seen a left back, or he's seen one or two players we thought we needed. So we arrived, we watched the game, he said, oh, we're having dinner with these people. So me and Treves have gone into this lovely restaurant. We're standing at the bar, and I've gone, oh, there's Patini over there. And Bonnet, the Polish geese. I went, oh, it must be a good restaurant if they're in here. And then Irving strolled in, he's gone, as if we had to go all the way to Turin to find out whether Patini was a good player or Bonnet was a good player. So then we're sitting there and they're talking because Patini wanted to play with Glenn. So we had half a chance with him. The other fella, I'm going, no. And I'm falling off the end of the table. And I go, well, I think we might miss that one out, Pete. Then you, like, you know. But we had a chance with Patini, Michel Patini. But,
oh, wow.
Yeah,
best player you played with?
Best player.
Or best player you saw play? Or best
Well, unfortunately, the best player I played against is George Best.
Georgie Best.
Without any shadow of a doubt.
Where does Jimmy come up with George? Jimmy Griggs?
Oh, well, he was the best player I played against.
George.
But then I always used to say Dave Mackay.
Right.
You know, because he was an all-round,
Yeah.
you know, light to everything. But then little Gary Brooke, who used to play for us, Buddha, he said he wasn't the best player you ever played with. So I said, well, you tell me who the best player was.
Mickey Hazard.
He said, he thinks he is. He said, who's the best player there's ever been at his position? And I went, Pratt by name, Pratt by nature. Of course, it's Pat Jennings. Because he's the greatest goalkeeper I've ever seen.
Right.
Or ever likely to see.
Yeah.
But then I would be being derogatory to Jimmy and Gilly and Chiv and Mike England, centre half, Cyril Knowles as a left back. We had, there was a wealth of. That's how I managed to survive.
Are there any special players that stand out? I mean, Brian Dean was fantastic for you, obviously Fash, Corky, YZ. I mean,
yeah, a lot of them. People say to you,
Nigel Winterburn.
Yeah.
Then you had Phelan.
Yeah, no, he came after.
Oh,
but, I mean, people say who was the best player. Well, you got a lot of players who do jobs for you that don't stick out. They're not the fans' favourite and everything else, but they are so much the integral part of the team that they do a job for you. And you think, yeah, why? Yeah, there's some that catch the eye, like Hodges, should have been better. Unbelievable talent, but didn't have the motivation and wanted to go on the drink in the summer instead of looking after himself. I mean, Ron Atkinson said to me he should be playing for Manchester United. Yeah. He said he shouldn't be playing for Sheffield United. And, a real talent, I remember how he did Schmeichel with a chip when we beat him in the Cup. Yeah. Absolutely sublime. Schmeichel's come out and everything, straight over the top. Wow. And that. So, I see people, well, we always go back. Bobby Charlton, what a great player he was. And you talk about people that go on. Pelly at 18, when I saw him in 1958, I'm thinking, God, what's going on? I'm 14 years old watching this bloke play for Brazil at 18, and to do that. And of course, sometimes it triggers off. There's great players now, doubt about it, but I think there's a period where I think the Premier League only started in 1990, and every team or manager or player was rubbish before that time. But, again, you think of the pitches they played on.
1958, I was 10, and Man United was... Why they got the biggest supporters club, the London section, is because they became, after the Munich air crash, they became everyone's second team. I used to win the FA Cup, because they got it twice, the FA Cup final. Used to have to go down on the grass, because we played on this bit of grass outside my block of flats, and used to have 3 fights to become Bobby Charlton. And then 10 years later, I was trying to kick. Couldn't get anywhere near it.
Glenn Hoddle, a lot of people, and I used to be a bit critical, thinking Glenn don't work hard enough, and then, but he's talented. But I remember the year Wimbledon got in the league, we drew Tottenham in the League Cup. We went over there, and Glenn's in the corner, and I thought, this is just my game. I'm going to iron him out. Well, all of a sudden, I'm sitting on the track. Where's Glenn Hoddle gone? He'd flicked the ball over me, moved out of the way and gone, oh, you idiot.
Well, do you know what's funny about that? One player, Jack Charlton, said, I'll tell you one player that I've had in my team, well, we haven't got, or I'd love to have an English player. And we was all guessing these names of who these great players, of Brian Robson and loads of others. And we didn't mention Glenn Hoddle. And he went, Glenn Hoddle. And we thought, come back violent. He plays more balls, diagonals, in behind teams than any other player's ever done.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was his choice, Glenn Hoddle, which we'd never have gone for.
I mean, that's the one big thing that annoys me in football now, is we don't play forward enough. We don't look. When you see a good game, And when you cause teams problems is when you play through lines and play forward and turn the opposition. But quickly, we have got around, I mean, we could be here all day having a chat with these incredible legends. But the title, where do you see that going?
I think it'll be those that are there at this moment in time. Your Man City, your Liverpool,
Man City,
and your Chelsea.
Chelsea, the top
Unfortunately.
three. United seem to not. I think it's City, Liverpool, or
But
Chelsea.
we're having a crap time, Tottenham, and we're fifth. So there you go.
It's tough times. Where do you see it, Harry? Sorry.
The three. I think Man City will do it again.
Okay.
I do. I think they've got the experience and everything. And Chelsea have done absolutely brilliantly, but I think they're too defensive-minded. They don't kill teams off like Man City can do. You with me? And the fact that Man City have come back and beaten Chelsea, I think, is a big psychological.
That was a massive game. That was.
And as well on that is that Man City have played Leicester away, Spurs away, Chelsea away, Liverpool away.
Yeah, they have.
You know, they've had really tough away games, and they're still, for me, they're in a bit of a false position because they've had played very tough games away.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I think it's going to be a brilliant race going into it. Listen, guys, it's been incredible having you on. Thanks for joining us here at the Redwood. It's been fascinating. This is what Pubcast is all about, is reminiscing with these absolute legends of the game and hearing their stories all over again. Hopefully you'll come back on the show again and come and speak to us and spend some time. Coming up, we're going to go and speak to Richard Keys. We're still here at the Redwood and we're going to have a very special treat now. We're going to go over to Doha and be joined by the legend that is Richard Keys. Was I remembering right, Richard, that you were saying that Man United were going to win the title? Am I remembering right? And how are you feeling about that?
I did say, and I stand by what I said, that if they could get everything, all the component parts working together, they have the tools to mount a title challenge. I genuinely believe that. But, and it is a big but, what I saw at the weekend and what I've seen in recent weeks suggests to me that not too many of those component parts are interested in speaking to the chief engineer or listening to what he's got to say. You know, Pogba had the temerity to go on television after the game at Leicester and say, we need change. Well, I've got to tell you, if I was the next man after Solskjaer, and I think there has to be one, I really do, then one of my first changes would be Pogba. Because, you know, I joked at the weekend, you boys both know, Matt Latiz, it's often been the case that he was credited with inventing walking football. It is. I mean, occasional diagonal jog you might get out of him, but you know, Pogba and Fernandes at the moment they're playing walking football. United were so far off at the weekend; it was embarrassing. I think they've got all the tools. They've got everything they need to mount a challenge. So why aren't they?
And you could add to that, Richard, that personally I've always felt if a player doesn't want to play for you or makes it quite clear that he has his interest elsewhere, I think that creates a real bad atmosphere in the dressing room and onto the football pitch, because Pogba's going to find a club because he's a top player, but he's also wanting to leave. So you've got to make that decision for him. Yeah. I'd help him find a club, Cass. I really would. I mean, I would drive him to whatever destination he chose, because I said to the boys here, Andy and Nigel de Jong, who's with us at the weekends often, I can't remember more than 3 or 4 influential performances from a £90 million footballer across the time that he's been at Manchester United. When he should be taking games like that at the weekend by the scruff of the neck and running them. And you know that yourself, Cass. Top midfield players have got all the qualities to run a match at their pace. I never see Pogba do that. Maybe once at Tottenham in when they were playing at Wembley, maybe once in the derby. But they're too infrequent. I mean, I should be able to tell you games when he's been disappointing, not those when he's played well. And you know, Ronaldo. I always felt it was a romantic signing, not a business signing in sense of what do you get from him on the pitch. He's not a centre forward. You know, what do you do with him? The best centre forward's Edinson Cavani. It's a specialist role, Cass. You played it. I think they need somebody to be able to find out what is the best team, and then tell those guys that they believe to be their best 11 who's playing,
and disappoint others that aren't. And it might not be a pleasant process, but it's going to happen.
Is that more vanity signing, you think, Richard?
I thought so, Cass. I thought obviously they panicked when there was a suggestion he was going to City. I think they might have been, and I'm not being smart now. I said this at the time. I think they might have been better off letting him go to City. Look, he could get 30, 40 goals this year, Cass, but and follow every match by telling us it's all about the team. But it's not. It's all about him. And at his age, I mean, yeah, fantastic. But to invest the sort of money they have and to now to be locked into the problem, which they are, they've got to start him, because look what happened when they didn't. You know, I did think it was a vanity signing, and it may have been that you know, they should have looked at it with more of a business-like call and said, okay, you know, you want to come back to Manchester and play for City, carry on. I think his best years are gone. Of course, he's not yet over the top. There's goals left in him, and he's an inspirational character. So it's hard saying these things in some ways, but I don't think it was the right place and the right time. Maybe there were others they could have concentrated on getting.
I definitely think, without a doubt, I think if Man City buy a striker in January, I think it's probably theirs. But Liverpool are getting into a rhythm. Chelsea are going to be strong. So that's going to be a great title race. Richard, look, it's been an absolute pleasure yet again. Thank you so much for your time. Let's give Richard Keys a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Hope you enjoyed this.
Thank you very much.
Very shortly. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've been Pubcast. He's been Tony Cascarino. These guys have been fantastic.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks for joining us. Take care. God bless. Join us again soon on Pubcast.